This anime tells the story of a man named Sakamoto Teru, a former top-tier hitman feared by everyone. With his unmatched skills, he could wipe out an entire group of enemies all by himself. However, one day, he fell in love with a woman. To be with her, Sakamoto decided to leave his violent profession behind. He started living a normal life, got married, and even had a child. After enjoying a peaceful life for quite some time, Sakamoto had now become a store manager and had gained quite a bit of weight. One day, a man named Shin was watching him from outside the store. Shin had been searching for Sakamoto everywhere and had finally tracked him down. Meanwhile, inside the store, a little kid was playing with the glass door, scribbling on it with ink, and then aiming a toy bow at it. Sakamoto and his wife didn't seem to mind the child's behavior, but when the kid accidentally spilled ink on a customer's pants, the man immediately got angry and was about to hit him. Despite the kid being a troublemaker, Sakamoto couldn't just stand by and let it happen. Before the man's punch could land, Sakamoto swiftly grabbed his hand and calmly diffused the situation. After that incident, Shin finally revealed himself to Sakamoto. However, Sakamoto no longer recognized him. Shin then reminded him that he was one of his former subordinates. As Sakamoto's memory returned, Shin tried to convince him to return to the assassin world. However, Sakamoto refused, firmly stating that he would never go back. Shin was furious. To him, the once feared legend now looked like nothing more than a regular overweight man. To cool off, Shin tried lighting a cigarette, but Sakamoto quickly cut it in half, reminding him that they were in a non-smoking area. Seeing that Sakamoto's reflexes were still as sharp as ever, Shin realized that despite his changed appearance, Sakamoto could still take him out anytime he wanted. A little while later, a local asked Sakamoto for help cutting a tree branch. After that, he also helped calm down a crying child at the park. Sakamoto did it all without hesitation. However, from Shin's perspective, it looked like Sakamoto was just trying to blend in and hide his true identity. That day, Shin decided to leave. Even though Sakamoto had changed a lot, he still admired him and wished they could work together again. Unfortunately, since Sakamoto had left them without permission and broke the gang leader's rules, they had ordered that Sakamoto must be eliminated. As Shin returned home, he wrestled with this problem. Despite still looking up to Sakamoto, he ultimately decided to carry out the hit. The next day, Shin returned to Sakamoto's store. He pretended to be there to say goodbye and suddenly fired a shot at him. However, Sakamoto had his own unique way of dodging bullets. He used a piece of candy to deflect the bullet's trajectory, preventing it from hitting him. He then threw ice cream at Shin to distract him before quickly vanishing between the store shelves. When Shin struggled to locate him, Sakamoto launched a powerful kick, knocking Shin out cold. A while later, Shin woke up in Sakamoto's home. He had been brought into the living room and was invited to have dinner with the family. At first, Shin was wary, suspecting that the food might be poisoned. But after taking a bite, he was overwhelmed with emotion. It tasted too good. In that moment, he understood something. Sakamoto simply wanted to protect this peaceful life. The next day, Shin returned to the gang with newfound resolve. He pleaded with them to let Sakamoto live because he had found a new place to belong. The gang leader agreed, but on one condition. Shin had to die in Sakamoto's place. As an expert mind reader, Shin quickly realized that the leader was lying. Knowing this, he decided to fight back and rebel. Unbeknownst to Shin, Sakamoto had planted a listening device. From afar, he had been monitoring Shin's situation. After understanding what was happening, Sakamoto decided to step in and save him. He opened a secret weapons storage hidden in his store filled with all kinds of firearms. However, out of all the weapons available, he chose a stun gun. Meanwhile, Shin was struggling to fight on his own. His ability to read minds allowed him to predict enemy movements and attack from the shadows, but the sheer number of opponents overwhelmed him. On top of that, his ammo was running low. As he attempted to break through, one of the enemies managed to shoot him in the leg, leaving him unable to escape and completely surrounded. Moments later, Sakamoto arrived. Using his stun gun, he incapacitated the enemies one by one. He also used chopsticks to catch bullets mid-air. When the enemies tried to shoot him all at once, Sakamoto swiftly dodged and sliced through their guns with a knife. After taking down every opponent, he made a decision. He would recruit Shin to work at his store. While enthusiastically working at the shop, Shin excitedly talked about Sakamoto's fight from the other day. He was amazed that despite being retired, Sakamoto was still the strongest. He admired how Sakamoto could take down enemies in a single strike. Hearing this, Sakamoto's wife immediately asked if they planned on returning to the assassin world. She even threatened to divorce him if he dared to break the family's rules. Terrified of losing his wife, Sakamoto firmly stated that he had no intention of going back. After talking with his wife, he quickly warned Shin to stop bringing up unnecessary things. Later that afternoon, Sakamoto and Shin visited a Chinese neighborhood. Even though it was quite far, Sakamoto deliberately went there to buy limited edition steamed buns. He also wanted to bring them back for Aoi and Hana. Seeing this, Shin realized just how much Sakamoto cared for his family. On their way back to the store, suddenly, a girl jumped from the upper floor of a building and landed right on Sakamoto. As a result, the steamed buns he had just bought were completely destroyed. The girl's name was Lu Xiaotang. She was being chased by a group of people after her family's inheritance. While Lu was busy fighting off her pursuers, Sakamoto just stood there, more concerned about his ruined food. However, when Lu started to get overwhelmed, he finally stepped in to help. But as more enemies kept appearing, Sakamoto decided to escape with her instead. Failing to capture Lu, the people after her hired assassins named Sun He and Ba Chu. Their mission was to steal the key Lu carried, believing that it held the power to dominate the black market. While escaping, Lu explains that she is the daughter of a well-known mafia family. She's being hunted because she carries the key to a secret vault left behind by her family. Shin suggests that she just throw the key away, but she refuses, saying that her parents sacrificed their lives to protect it. On top of that, she feels she wouldn't be able to face them in the afterlife if she failed to keep it safe. Since this isn't their problem, Lu decides to part ways with Sakamoto. But before she leaves, Sakamoto suddenly asks if she knows how to make steamed buns. Lu says that her father once taught her, so she knows the basics. Hearing this, Sakamoto immediately decides to help her, but on one condition. Once this is all over, she has to make him some steamed buns. Not long after, Sun He and Ba Chu appear before them. In an instant, Ba Chu kicks Sakamoto, sending him flying into the building next door. Lu explains that these two aren't just ordinary hitmen, they're serial killers who murder people purely for fun. As Sun He and Ba Chu chat, Shin launches a surprise attack. However, Sun He effortlessly deflects it. He assumes Shin is angry because his friend just died, but it turns out Sakamoto is perfectly fine. Just as Ba Chu is about to slash Lu, Sakamoto suddenly returns and smashes him from behind. His punch is so powerful that Ba Chu is sent flying, crashing through the floor. Inside the building, Sun He demands that Lu hand over the key, but she refuses. She's willing to risk her life to protect it. Sun He then remarks that her parents said the same thing, right before they died. The comment enrages Lu, but Sakamoto quickly stops her before she does anything reckless. There's a reason Sakamoto wants to save Lu. Back when he was still a hitman, Aoi once told him that they could never be together unless he changed. She even jumped from a high place to prove that other people also have someone they want to protect. That's why she made Sakamoto promise to stop killing and to live his life helping others instead. Remembering that promise, Sakamoto orders Shin to defeat their enemies without killing them. Sun He and Ba Chu finally start fighting seriously. Even though they're armed with blades, Sakamoto holds his own using nothing but kitchen tools. Realizing that none of their attacks are working, Sun He and Ba Chu decide to launch a synchronized assault. But Sakamoto easily dodges every slash without taking a single hit. Unfortunately, since he hasn't fought in a long time, his neck starts cramping up a little. However, when they attack again, Sakamoto shuts them down by smacking them with a frying pan and a wok. Seeing that victory is impossible, Sun He decides to target Lu directly. But Shin, reading his thoughts, quickly stops him. In the end, Sakamoto finishes the fight by slamming them both with a refrigerator. With the enemies defeated, Lu starts wondering who Sakamoto really is. Sakamoto casually responds that he's just a regular store employee. Afterward, Sakamoto and Shin escort Lu back home. Once they deal with the people hunting her, Lu finally opens the family vault with her key. Inside, she finds all sorts of valuables that belong to the previous clan leader, from gold-plated weapons to rare jewels. With everything settled, Lu decides to work at Sakamoto's store since she has nowhere else to go. She plans to start making authentic steamed buns there. However, aside from making buns, she doesn't have any other skills. On top of that, on her very first day, she's already late because she's terrible at organizing stock. Shin tries to give her some advice, but Lu refuses to listen and just calls him a nagging old man. When Shin reports this to Sakamoto, Sakamoto suddenly starts acting strangely. He advises Shin to speak politely and tells Lu to apologize for being late. On top of that, he starts talking a lot more, even though he usually isn't much of a talker. Not long after, a man who looks exactly like Sakamoto suddenly walks into the store. Casually, he sits down at the cashier's desk. Without acknowledging his look-alike, the other Sakamoto suddenly attacks. This makes the real Sakamoto realize that the imposter is actually an old associate. Nagumo arrives with shocking news. Sakamoto now has a bounty on his head worth a whopping 1 billion yen. At first, Shin and Lu don't believe it, but their doubts vanish the moment a pizza delivery guy shows up and tries to assassinate him. The assassin threatens to hurt Nagumo, but Sakamoto just casually eats the pizza he brought. With this, Nagumo proves that his intel was right. Then, without wasting time, he quickly subdues the assassin by locking his neck. Sakamoto asks who put the hit on him, but unfortunately, Nagumo doesn't know either. He's only here to complete a mission he received. After finishing his business with Sakamoto, Nagumo leaves, dragging the defeated assassin along with him. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the people plotting Sakamoto's assassination gather together. They watch him from a distance using a hidden camera planted by the pizza delivery guy. Seeing Sakamoto on the screen, they can't believe that this chubby guy is worth 1 billion yen. However, their leader warns them not to underestimate him. Then, through the camera, Sakamoto sends them a message. If they keep bothering him, he'll show them what hell looks like. As he's thinking over this problem with Shin, Sakamoto is suddenly reminded by his wife and daughter that they have plans to go to an amusement park tomorrow. This throws him into a panic. His family's safety could be at risk. The next day, Sakamoto and his family head to the amusement park. As they enjoy the attractions, Shin makes up his mind to protect them so they can have a peaceful day. But since the park is so crowded, it's hard to tell who the enemies are. Even so, Shin is confident there are no immediate threats nearby, as he can read thoughts within a 30-meter radius. However, this only makes Lu mad as she feels like he's constantly spying on her thoughts. Soon after, Shin notices someone approaching them. The person is disguised as a janitor and blending in with the visitors. Just as the janitor is about to strike, Sakamoto swiftly takes him down using a pen. Shin and Lu quickly secure the attacker to avoid drawing attention. But the janitor isn't the only assassin sent to the amusement park. Another hitman, named Tatsu, is also lurking around. After observing his target, Tatsu realizes he can trick Shin by emptying his mind. By doing this, Shin won't be able to detect him. Later, Sakamoto gets on a roller coaster to better scope out the enemies. Shin and Lu purposely take seats in the back. At first, Shin doesn't sense any danger, but then Lu spots a suspicious silver-haired guy sitting ahead of them. Realizing this, Shin quickly warns Sakamoto that there's an enemy behind him, waiting for the right moment to shoot. To protect Sakamoto, Shin decides to jump off the ride and face the enemy alone. Standing on the roller coaster tracks, he declares that today is Sakamoto's day off, so he'll be handling this fight himself. As the roller coaster speeds toward them, Tatsu seizes the moment and throws a knife at Shin. Unable to dodge in time, Shin is struck. The blade is coated in poison, making it hard for him to move. Even as his body weakens, Shin refuses to back down. Tatsu starts mocking Sakamoto, calling him weak and saying he has the eyes of a loser, someone too scared of death. But Shin fires back, saying Tatsu knows nothing about Sakamoto. According to him, Sakamoto isn't weak. He's strong because he has a family to protect, and a person like that is stronger than anyone. By now, the poison spreading through Shin's body is affecting his vision. But even with his sight failing, he keeps searching for a way to defeat Tatsu. As the roller coaster approaches, he uses the momentum to drag Tatsu onto a performance stage. Shin deliberately brought the fight there for a reason. He plans to use the audience's reactions to track his opponent's movements. Realizing this, Sakamoto quickly steps in to help. Using his ability to read minds, he gives Shin precise instructions on when to attack and when to dodge. Even though his vision is nearly gone, with Sakamoto's guidance, Shin still manages to take Tatsu down. After Tatsu was defeated, Boiled and Obaguro prepared to carry out their mission. Unlike the previous assassins, Boiled never underestimated Sakamoto because they were old friends. Meanwhile, Shin was receiving the antidote from Lu. However, the moment the medicine was dropped into his eyes, he was already trying to run away, even though the treatment wasn't painful at all. In the midst of this, Sakamoto asked Tatsu who had hired him. At first, Tatsu refused to talk, but after Lu stabbed him with a poisoned knife and threatened to throw away the antidote, he finally confessed, because he still valued his life. Tatsu revealed that he had been hired by the Dodenkai Group, a shady organization involved in dangerous jobs. However, he himself was only a part-timer with no real loyalty to them. In other words, he came from the same assassin association that Shin and Sakamoto were once part of. Not long after, Sakamoto's wife and daughter arrived to meet him. They invited Sakamoto to go eat with them since they were getting hungry. Before they left, Hana gave something to Tatsu. Even though she was just a child, she wanted to thank him because his performance earlier had been really entertaining. During their meal, Shin found his mind completely blank due to the antidote's side effects. As a result, he temporarily lost his ability to read people's thoughts. Lu was shocked by this. Without his mind-reading skills, she considered Shin a failure as a human lie detector. Because of that, she suggested they just go home. However, that plan was going to be difficult to pull off, as Aoi was beginning to suspect that they were hiding something from her. Meanwhile, Boiled and Obiguro found Tatsu trying to escape. Obiguro quickly knocked him down and pinned him to the ground so he couldn't move. Tatsu asked why they were there. Boiled then replied that they were here to finish the job. Even though Boiled and Obiguro often acted goofy, they were actually incredibly strong fighters. Rumor had it that the two of them had taken down over 100 enemies. Because of that, Tatsu assumed that Sakamoto wouldn't make it out alive. Elsewhere, Hana asked her dad if he didn't like amusement parks. To keep his daughter from getting sad, Shin and Lu assured her that they were super excited and having a great time at the park. Because of that, they decided to keep playing and riding every attraction they could. So far, no more assassins had shown up. They figured everything would be fine since the park was so big. However, as night fell, Sakamoto's wife and daughter suggested going to the haunted house. The place was terrifying and the perfect spot for an assassination. While Sakamoto's wife and daughter were having the time of their lives, Sakamoto himself couldn't relax, because a bunch of assassins had slipped inside. Meanwhile, Boiled recalled his past with Sakamoto. They first met at the training center and often spent time together, even when there were no missions or classes. However, after a long time, Boiled realized that Sakamoto had never really considered him a friend. On top of that, Sakamoto was extremely popular with women, while Boiled had the opposite experience, and yet, Boiled had once believed they were exactly the same. At the same time, Sakamoto was moving through the haunted house in secret, taking out every enemy lurking around. Meanwhile, Lu looked absolutely terrified. To calm herself down, she took a family remedy that was supposedly meant to bring good luck. However, instead of getting lucky, she ended up getting drunk. In her drunken state, she recklessly opened a door filled with zombies. As a result, the zombies spilled out, causing Sakamoto to get separated from his family. Taking advantage of the chaos, Boiled made his move to attack Sakamoto. When they came face to face, Boiled immediately asked if Sakamoto still remembered him. Since Sakamoto didn't recognize him, Boiled made it clear he was going to make sure Sakamoto never forgot him again. On the other hand, Shin found Aoi and Hana, but they were unconscious. Not only that, but he was also in danger, as Obiguro had discovered him. Moments later, Lu launched a surprise attack while still drunk. She claimed she was about to showcase a technique passed down through her family for thousands of years. Meanwhile, Sakamoto asked Boiled where his family was. Since Boiled refused to answer, Sakamoto grew frustrated and immediately struck him. However, Boiled wasn't an easy opponent. Every time Sakamoto attacked, Boiled managed to counter it and retaliate with bouncing explosive orbs. Elsewhere, Lu did have strong martial arts skills, but because she was drunk, Obiguro easily knocked her down by simply shaking her head. To force Lu to fight seriously, Obiguro threatened to kill her friend if she couldn't land a hit every 10 seconds. However, instead of getting up, she just started crying, feeling helpless about saving her friend. As time passed, Sakamoto started to remember who his opponent was. Because of that, he decided to fight seriously from now on. Despite being drunk, Lu was still able to fight well. However, since she wasn't taking the battle seriously, Obiguro had plenty of chances to knock her down. When Lu fell, Shin screamed hysterically. His reaction made Lu laugh because it was so over the top. As Lu finished her drink, her martial arts skills improved significantly. With her agility, she dodged every enemy attack and countered flawlessly. This only made Obeguro more excited. He wanted Lu to fight seriously and actually try to kill him. However, just moments before delivering a punch, she suddenly snapped back to her senses. When she sobered up, Lu looked confused and had no recollection of what had just happened. Impressed by her strength, Obeguro admitted that Lu's abilities were so incredible they gave him chills. Because of that, instead of continuing the fight, he decided to call a truce. Meanwhile, Sakamoto suddenly reverted to his slim form. With his current body, he moved even faster, striking without giving his opponent a chance to dodge. His punches were so powerful that they shattered the iron gloves Boiled was wearing. When Boiled tried to attack with his explosive orbs, Sakamoto caught one and threw it right back at him. Sakamoto acknowledged that Boiled was strong. In the past, he had also used his strength to harm others, but now he had chosen to use it to protect the people he cared about. Realizing Sakamoto's superiority, Boiled admitted defeat. He promised not to bother Sakamoto or his family again. As they both enjoyed some steamed buns, Shin approached them excitedly. He was thrilled to see Sakamoto looking cool like the old days. After that, Boiled brought up the bounty placed on Sakamoto's head. Hearing this, Aoi immediately gathered everyone and demanded an explanation. Since he had been exposed, Sakamoto had no choice but to tell the truth. He revealed that there was a bounty on his head and that assassins were after him. Aoi was shocked to hear this. Although Sakamoto didn't want to worry her, Aoi made it clear that there could be no secrets in their family. After hearing his wife's advice, Sakamoto decided to track down whoever placed the bounty and have it removed. To find the Dodenkai headquarters, he had a lead. He went to an information broker disguised as a DVD rental shop. It didn't take long for them to get their hands on a documentary about Dodenkai. However, the information wasn't cheap. Sakamoto had to pay a hefty price for it. Fortunately, he still had savings from his bachelor days. Before he left, the shopkeeper asked Sakamoto if he was planning to return to the underworld. He warned him to be cautious, as there was a chance his old acquaintances were involved in this mess. Meanwhile, in another location, Nagumo was having dinner with his colleagues. When asked if he had met Sakamoto, Nagumo pretended not to know, which irritated the person questioning him. A man named Shishiba remarked that emotional outbursts weren't their style. However, when his food order turned out to be wrong, he got even angrier and punished the chef. Moments later, Iria from the Assassin Association arrived and showed them a photo. He explained that recently someone had been slaughtering members of the association. Because of this, he requested their help in handling the situation. After gathering enough information, Sakamoto and his two companions headed straight to Dodenkai's headquarters. Dressed entirely in black, they began their infiltration mission, avoiding combat whenever possible. When they encountered guards, Shin and Sakamoto swiftly took them down. However, after knocking out several people, they ended up ditching their disguises out of sheer boredom. When Lu asked where the boss's office was, Shin explained that it was on the top floor. To reach it, they had to break in through a window, just like the documentary had described. Feeling like a spy, Lu was thoroughly enjoying the infiltration. However, as they got closer to the boss's office, Shin realized something was off. It was too quiet. He couldn't hear any enemies at all. It turned out that all of Dodenkai's executives, including their boss, had already been massacred by someone. At the same time, Nagumo appeared and admitted that he was the one who had killed them. To erase any traces, he had no choice but to eliminate Sakamoto and his entire team. Moving swiftly, he dashed behind Shin and stabbed his neck with a knife. However, it turned out to be just a toy knife. Nagumo was only joking and happened to be there for another reason. In reality, he was on a mission investigating the person responsible for killing 100 members of the Assassin Association. Meanwhile, there was a freelance hitman named Heisuke. Unlike other assassins, he had no steady income and was often broke. Hoping to change his fate, he set his sights on Sakamoto, aiming to claim his bounty. Over time, bounty hunters targeting Sakamoto kept showing up at his store, causing it to become a total wreck in need of major repairs. With no money for renovations, their only hope was to win the paintball tournament happening the next day. Not long after, Heisuke arrived at Sakamoto's shop, holding up an old photo of Sakamoto when he was still slim. He ordered all the employees to hand over the person in the picture. To avoid trouble, Sakamoto pretended to be a part-time worker, claiming he had never heard of anyone named Sakamoto Taru. Hearing that, Heisuke panicked. He was completely devastated, thinking his target wasn't there. On top of that, he had no travel funds to continue his search elsewhere. Left with no choice, Heisuke gave up. But with his stomach growling from hunger, he stood outside the shop, hoping someone would give him food. Feeling bad for him, Sakamoto eventually handed him a steamed bun before he left. After failing to find his target, Heisuke spent the night on top of a building in a nearly collapsed tent. He dreamed of one day becoming important and living in a big house. But not long after, the wind blew his tent away. At that moment, he stumbled upon a flyer for the paintball tournament. The prize money was big enough to excite him, but there was one problem. He couldn't enter alone. To join, he needed a team of at least 2 members. Coincidentally, Sakamoto and Shin were also planning to enter. Desperate, Heisuke begged them to let him join. Left with no other choice, they finally accepted him. Once registration was complete, all participants gathered in the arena. While other teams took strategic positions, Sakamoto's team casually stood in the open. The other participants assumed they were amateurs, but they quickly realized they were dead wrong. In no time, Sakamoto and his team started eliminating every opponent in sight. Right from the start, Sakamoto's team became the center of attention, even being seen as potential champions. Sakamoto was determined to win the grand prize. He wanted to use the money to install bulletproof glass in his shop and expand his product selection. However, in the middle of the tournament, Lou accidentally exposed Sakamoto's true identity. Since his face looked completely different from the photo, Heisuke initially thought he had made a mistake. But Lou explained that the picture was indeed of Sakamoto when he was still skinny. Realizing he had been tricked, Heisuke immediately aimed his gun at Sakamoto. He couldn't forgive him for lying. Fortunately, the tournament was still ongoing. When other teams attacked, Sakamoto used the chaos to escape. But feeling betrayed, Heisuke wasn't about to let him get away. He grabbed a real gun and fired with the intent to kill. However, since his shot missed, Heisuke was forced to keep his distance and hide in the surrounding buildings. Shin considered going after him, but Sakamoto warned him to be careful. Their opponent was a sniper. As they observed the area, a bullet suddenly ricocheted and nearly hit Sakamoto. Shin assumed it was just a coincidence, but Sakamoto thought otherwise. He noticed that the bullet moved in an unusual way, leading him to suspect that Heisuke had a special ability that allowed his bullets to bounce. Heisuke didn't deny it. He admitted that he used custom bullets that could ricochet off surfaces. After revealing this, he unleashed a barrage of gunfire. Despite their constant movement, his shots were so precise that Sakamoto and Shin struggled to keep up. At the same time, Heisuke recalled his past. Since childhood, he had always lagged behind his peers. He lacked any notable skills except for one: his incredible accuracy. Heisuke took great pride in this ability. However, when he entered the working world, no one cared about his talent. Since he was never given the opportunity to use a gun, he was constantly seen as a burden. People often told him to quit being an assassin altogether. Eventually, he was fired. That's when he learned that Sakamoto had the highest bounty. To prove that he was a true sniper, Heisuke decided to join the hunt. While lost in thought, he unknowingly spoke out loud, forgetting that his communication device was still on. As a result, Sakamoto and Shin heard everything he said. Hearing his story, Shin tried to encourage Heisuke, telling him to ignore what others thought and believe in his own strength. Heisuke was briefly distracted. Using this opening, Sakamoto grabbed a small rock and threw it, shattering Heisuke's weapon. Realizing he had no chance of winning, Heisuke gave up on chasing Sakamoto. Meanwhile, Sakamoto went on to win the tournament. However, because Heisuke's gunfire had caused massive damage to the city, they were forced to use the prize money to pay for the repairs. When they returned to the shop, Sakamoto apologized for losing the money so quickly. But Aoi didn't mind. What mattered most was that Sakamoto was safe. Shin, curious about Sakamoto's past, wondered how he and Aoi first met. Using his ability, he read Aoi's thoughts. He saw that they had met at a supermarket, where Sakamoto was immediately drawn to her. However, when Aoi noticed blood on his clothes, she ran away. But instead of fleeing, she actually went to grab a bandage, an act of kindness that made Sakamoto fall for her. That's it for this recap. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next adventure. Got any thoughts or theories? Drop them in the comments. Let's talk anime. See you in the next recap, only on Ani Recapper.